We've already been talking about initialization as we've created a whole bunch of variables, external, automatics, statics, registers, all sorts of other things as we've been doing this. But let's focus on it here for just a second. Extern and static variables, if they are to be initialized by you, by the programmer, they have to be initialized with a constant. Because remember, those things happen at compile time. When we had our 4 different functions in different source files and they had v1, 2, and 3, whatever the variable names were, remember that we saw them all initialized before we ever referenced them, before we ever did anything with them. So those initializations were done when the compiler was going through the code and creating the object code. So those have to be constant definitions, constant initializations, because the compiler is not performing the program. It's not running the program and figuring out what these different numbers should be. It only has what is stored in the source code itself. That's why external and static definitions are constants, or initializations are constants. Automatics and registers, because they're stored on the stack, they are simply placeholders on the stack at the time that function is running. So if you don't explicitly initialize them with something, they'll get whatever junk is left on the stack. They'll get undefined garbage that's laying there. They can be initialized with a mathematical calculation, with an arithmetic operation, because they are only initialized during the functioning, the running of the program. So take a look at our little piece of code here. There is an extern x being defined out here, and it will be 0. Because we're not giving it any value. So by setting it aside on the heap, the compiler is required to clear out its memory because we don't know what's going to be there. Here we have an integer y, and we set it equal to 1, and that will be done when the program is compiled. 1 will be set in this place in memory, so that when things are loaded up and all of this data is set for operation before any function ever begins execution, these values will be taken care of. Down in here, this is an automatic called I. Since we didn't set it to anything, we didn't initialize it, it will be undefined garbage because it is on the stack and we don't know what's right there at the top of the stack where this thing is going. And here we have another integer z, and we're allowed to do this. We can say x plus 2, which we know is 0, so that'll be 2, times y plus 1, which is 1, and we'll also have another one added to it, so that's 2 times 2. So z has 4 in it, and this will be done as one of the first statements of main's functioning. This is really just shorthand. It doesn't matter if you say int z semicolon and then you say z equals this down here because it's going to do exactly the same amount of work. It's a little better to put this right here, I think, because it gets it out of the way and you know that z doesn't get forgotten someplace down inside your program. It has an initialized value and you don't go tripping over garbage or something that's there that you don't expect to be there. So that's covering initialization of all the different types that we've looked at: externs, statics, things that are outside the functions will be initialized with constants. Automatics and registers get garbage just because of where they're located. They're put on the stack rather than the heap. And that is our coverage of specific coverage of initialization.